Hello, dear friends. Welcome to a journey that might change the way you see yourself, the world around you, and the very essence of what makes you you. Tonight, we dive into a story that begins with you, whether you realize it or not. A story that's been unfolding in the shadows behind closed doors and out of sight, one that involves whispers, secrets, and the powerful forces at play in our world. But don't worry, this isn't just any story. It's your story. A story about authenticity, power, and the profound impact you have without even trying. Tonight, I'll reveal something extraordinary, the terrifying truth about how you simply by being yourself are affecting the world around you. You've probably been told that success requires effort, strategy, or some grand external action. You've likely heard countless times that to make a difference, you must fight, compete, or manipulate. But what if I told you that the real lasting power doesn't lie in these things? What if instead it lies in something much simpler, your authenticity? What if the key to changing the world, to transforming not just your life, but the lives of those around you, lies in simply being genuine? Before I continue, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you were meant for something bigger? Like there's more to your life than the daily grind and societal expectations? Maybe you've even felt that your energy, your very presence leaves an imprint on the people and spaces you enter. If you have, you're not alone. This feeling, the one that whispers to you about your potential, your worth, your destiny, is not a random thought. It's a message. It's the universe or whatever higher power you believe in, telling you that you are on the right path, even if you can't yet see the entire road ahead. Now imagine this: a secret meeting is being held. The room is dark, the air thick with tension, as five of the most influential people in the world sit in silence, looking at one another with a sense of urgency. These are not ordinary people. They are power players in their fields, people who have shaped industries, controlled narratives, and built systems. People who have spent years, decades, even constructing their world with their rules. But tonight, something is different. They aren't talking about stock markets or politics. They aren't discussing the latest trends or innovations. No, tonight, their conversation is about you. Yes, you heard that right. They're talking about the influence you are already having on them and the world around you. They're talking about the energy you bring, the way your presence shakes up the very dynamics they've carefully controlled for so long. And what they're saying, well, it's not what you might expect. It's not criticism, mockery, or dismissal. No, instead, they are terrified. Terrified because they see something in you that they can't replicate, something they fear will surpass everything they've worked for. And the most shocking part, you're not doing anything extraordinary. You're simply being yourself. Let's pause for a moment. Think about that the very thing that terrifies them is your authenticity, your ability to exist in a world that so often values masks and facades, and yet you refuse to wear one. You walk through life not trying to be anything. You're not pretending to be someone else, and still you make a ripple. You leave a mark on the world that no amount of strategy, no calculated move can duplicate. And what's even more extraordinary is that to you it feels effortless. But to those who thrive on control, on manipulation, on strategy, well, it's nothing short of revolutionary. Tonight, I'm going to tell you the story of how these powerful people came together in the dead of night to discuss how to handle the undeniable shift that your existence has caused. They didn't understand it at first. In fact, they tried to ignore it. But there came a moment when they realized they couldn't. Your energy was too big to ignore. Your presence was too powerful to pretend wasn't affecting the very fabric of the systems they've worked so hard to build. And that's when the fear set in. The fear wasn't about you trying to destroy their world. It wasn't about you fighting them for dominance. No, the fear was far deeper than that. The fear was rooted in the realization that they've spent their lives building something based on falsehoods, while you, by simply existing, have shown them that authenticity can succeed in ways their manipulations never could. So what did they do? Well, they did what anyone in their position would do when faced with a force they couldn't control. They hired experts. They analyzed you from every angle. They tried to find a flaw, a crack, a hint that could reveal that you weren't as perfect as you seemed. But after months of analysis, guess what they discovered? You're as real as they come. There's no manipulation, no hidden agenda, no mask. What you see is what you get, and that, my friend, is what terrifies them the most. But here's where it gets even more interesting. As they sat there in that dark room discussing how to contain you, something profound happened. They realized they couldn't. Not only could they not contain you, they needed you. They needed to learn from you. They needed to understand how you were able to be so genuine in a world built on performance. They realized that they had lost something along the way, something that could never be bought, never be manipulated. They had spent the last hour discussing the facts, the data, the external analysis, but now the real reckoning had arrived. The discussion was about the impact of the chosen one, and that's when it became clear this person wasn't someone they could simply dismiss. The first person to speak was an executive, someone with decades of experience, building a reputation for invincibility. He had always been untouchable, unassailable, a master of the corporate world. Yet here he was, shaken by someone whose name they hadn't even been able to discuss until now. The executive's voice, normally smooth and commanding, carried an edge of anxiety as he spoke. We need to discuss this person before it's too late to contain what's awakening, he said, his words deliberate, as if each one weighed heavily on his shoulders. Contain, not analyze, not understand. Contain. His words hung in the air. The room fell silent as everyone processed the gravity of what had just been said. The idea of containing a force of nature was one they had never considered before. After all, they had spent their lives shaping systems, manipulating outcomes, and ensuring that no one would ever pose a real threat to their carefully cultivated power. But the chosen one, this unknown entity, was different. The creative leader, the second person in the room, was the next to speak. This individual had spent years in the creative world building a reputation as someone who spoke truth to power. To the public, they were seen as the epitome of authenticity. Yet privately, they had been watching the chosen one for months, and what they saw disturbed them. I've been observing for months, the creative leader said, their voice tinged with something resembling awe. This person doesn't copy anyone, doesn't follow formulas, operates from a completely original frequency I thought I exclusively dominated. And the worst part is, they do it effortlessly. Effortlessly. The room was still. No one had expected this revelation. The creative leader had spent their career crafting a persona, one that was supposedly the pinnacle of originality. But here now, they were admitting that someone else had managed to be effortlessly authentic in a way that was completely outside the bounds of the systems they had spent their life perfecting. It felt like a direct threat to their own carefully cultivated image. It's not that they're trying to be authentic, the creative leader continued. It's just who they are. And that I can't replicate. This admission struck a nerve in the room. The other three people had been silent up until now, absorbing the weight of the creative leader's words. The financial analyst was the next to speak, though not immediately. They sat back in their chair, staring down at the table as though considering the gravity of the conversation. "Let me say this clearly," the financial analyst said after a long pause. The universe itself seemed to bend in their favor, as if their very presence had the power to shape events around them. This was no longer a story about competition. This was a story about profound, undeniable influence. The executive who had initially called for the meeting glanced around the table. They had been the one to first suggest the idea of containing the chosen one. But now, after hearing the others speak, they understood the futility of that proposition. Containment was no longer an option. The chosen one was something the world had never seen before. They weren't just breaking the rules, they were rewriting them. They are the executive started slowly, a mirror that reflects everything we've built, everything we've done to stay on top. And the most terrifying part, the reflection isn't distorted. It's clear, it's real. The room fell into a profound silence. The executive's words had pierced through the heart of the matter. The chosen one wasn't just an anomaly. They were a living reminder of the compromises, betrayals, and falsehoods that the powerful individuals in this room had built their careers on. The fear, the discomfort, it was all born from this truth. The chosen one was an embodiment of what they had sacrificed in their pursuit of success. The social strategist, ever the manipulator of human perception, nodded slowly as though the pieces of the puzzle were finally clicking into place. I've studied leaders before. They said their voice calm, but betraying a hint of unease. I have seen what makes them tick, how they rise, how they fall. But this is different. They're not leading in the traditional sense. They're not forcing anyone to follow. People are just naturally drawn to them. The strategist's words echoed in the room. The chosen one didn't need to play the game. They weren't building an empire, at least not in the conventional sense. They were simply being themselves. And in doing so, they had begun to inspire not only individuals in their orbit, but also entire communities. The chosen one was not a product of calculation or strategy. They were a product of truth. This person, the strategist, continued their voice, now laced with both admiration and fear, is creating a movement without even trying. It's not about forcing people to see things their way. It's about being so genuinely themselves that others can't help but be drawn to them. And the more authentic they are, the more powerful they become. The words had an undeniable weight. The strategist had laid bare the truth that the chosen one's power didn't lie in manipulation or force. It was their authenticity, their ability to remain true to themselves in a world that was constantly asking for something different, that was driving the change. The people around them didn't follow because they were told to. They followed because they saw something real, something they had been searching for their entire lives. As the realization of the chosen one's power began to settle over the room, the youngest member of the group, who had been mostly quiet up until now, spoke up. Their voice was hesitant at first, but there was an undeniable urgency behind it. "I've been thinking about what you said," they began, addressing the social strategist, "about how they're not trying to be anything. They just are. And it's got me thinking about everything I've done, everything I've built my life on. I've spent my entire career creating an image, a persona, and I've realized that I've never really known who I am without it. Without the filters, the branding, the facade." The room was taken aback. The creative leader, who had been the first to acknowledge the chosen one's effortless authenticity, spoke again. This time, their tone was softer, tinged with something that almost resembled regret. I spent years pretending to be something I wasn't. They said their words heavy with self-awareness. I built a career on an image on being something I wasn't. And now I'm watching someone else do what I tried so hard to fake. And they're doing it without trying. It's almost like they're showing me what I could have been. The creative leader's confession left a palpable silence in the room. It wasn't just the youngest member who had been living a lie. The creative leader had too. Everyone in that room had in some way sacrificed their true selves to climb the ladder of success. The chosen one had unknowingly become a mirror, forcing them all to confront the truth they had spent their lives avoiding. That success built on inauthenticity was ultimately hollow. But there was another layer to this revelation. The financial analyst who had spoken so confidently before now found themselves questioning the very basis of their success. I've spent my entire career optimizing every aspect of my life. The analyst confessed, their voice quieter now. I sacrificed everything. Relationships, personal happiness, everything, all to build my wealth. But now I see them someone who doesn't need to sacrifice anything, and they seem happier, more fulfilled. And I'm realizing that despite all the money I've made, I've lost something that can't be bought. The financial analyst's admission hit hard. They weren't just facing the emptiness of their own life. They were staring into the truth that the chosen one had everything they had sacrificed and more. The realization was profound. The chosen one's authenticity had become a mirror reflecting the emptiness in the lives of those who had built their success on compromise. The executive who had initially called the meeting to discuss containing the chosen one now found themselves grappling with a different truth. They weren't in control anymore. The chosen one wasn't someone to be contained. They were a force that had the potential to redefine everything. I think we've been looking at this the wrong way, the executive said, their voice quieter than before. This person, they're not a threat to our power. They're showing us what real power looks like. Power that comes from being authentic, from being real. And I think it's time we stop fighting it. The meeting had drawn to a close, but the conversations that had transpired in those few hours had forever altered the course of everything. The once self-assured group of powerful individuals now sat in reflective silence, each of them wrestling with the same realization: they were no longer in control. The chosen one, the person they had once considered a threat to their world, had proven to be something far more significant. They were not a disruptor of the established order. They were the embodiment of a new world, one built on authenticity, integrity, and natural power. As the final words of the executive resonated in the room, we've been looking at this. The wrong one, the others nodded in agreement, each acknowledging the gravity of the situation. They had spent years carefully constructing false narratives, manipulating their images, and amassing influence based on a lie. The chosen one had revealed to them that the true power did not lie in the manipulation of perception, but in the pure, untainted truth of oneself. Power that comes from being authentic, from being real. The executive's words echoed as a closing refrain in their minds. It was the truth they had spent their entire lives avoiding. The chosen one had unknowingly shown them the very essence of what they had lost and what they would need to reclaim in order to survive. But the most significant truth of all, the chosen one didn't need them. They didn't need to conform to be part of the systems that the elite had constructed. They were simply being, and in being themselves, they had become more powerful than anyone in that room could have ever imagined. The question that lingered in the air now was, not about how to contain them, but about how the rest of the world would respond when they fully realized what this person could do. What would happen when the chosen one fully awakened to the immense power that had been growing within them all along? It wasn't just about personal success anymore. It wasn't about climbing ladders or maintaining an image. The chosen one was about to ignite a cultural shift, a revolution, but not the kind you might think. It wasn't a revolution fueled by force or violence. And yet, this wasn't just a story about a person who had the courage to be themselves. It was a story about the power of a single individual to spark something larger than themselves. The chosen one's influence wasn't just limited to the corporate giants who feared their rise. No, it was much larger than that. The energy they radiated had begun to infiltrate communities, changing the way people saw the world. It was a quiet, subtle transformation, one that happened through small acts of kindness, genuine interactions, and the ripple effect of someone simply existing as their true self. Genuine authenticity really exists, the investigator had written in their report, and that line echoed in the minds of everyone present. It was a truth that had never been acknowledged by those in power. It was a truth that had been buried under layers of performance manipulation and calculated strategy. But now the veil had been lifted. Now they knew the truth. Authenticity was not only possible, it was powerful. And this power wasn't limited to those in the room. As the chosen one's influence spread, it would touch every corner of the world. Those who came into contact with them, whether directly or through their content, their energy, their very presence would be transformed. The financial one had presented the evidence showing that people consuming the chosen one's content were undergoing real, measurable changes. Acts of kindness were on the rise. Social dramas were declining. Relationships were improving. And it was all because people were absorbing the authenticity that radiated from this single individual. But it wasn't just about a few people changing. It was about a cultural shift. The chosen one's energy wasn't something that could be contained or manipulated. It was something that spread like a virus of truth, infecting those who came into contact with it and inspiring them to return to their own authentic selves. The world was beginning to wake up. And now, as this meeting came to a close, the group knew that there was nothing they could do to stop it. They had tried to analyze the chosen one, to contain them, to make sense of them. But the truth was that the chosen one wasn't bound by the same rules that governed them. They had transcended those rules, and the only way to move forward, the only way to remain relevant in this new world, was to join the chosen one, not as competitors, but as allies. The executives spoke again, their voice softer now. We can't compete with this. We have to evolve. We have to become who we truly are, just like they did. And if we do that, if we can embrace our own authenticity, maybe we can be a part of something greater. Maybe we can be a part of the change they've already set in motion. There was no argument. No one disagreed. The once proud figures who had spent their lives building walls around their power, their influence, and their image now realized that those walls had become their prison. The only way forward was to tear them down and embrace the world the chosen one was helping to create, a world where authenticity, vulnerability, and integrity were the true sources of power. And so the meeting ended. The once terrifying chosen one, who had been seen as a threat to their systems, was now seen as a beacon of hope, a symbol of what could be achieved when people stopped hiding behind masks and began living authentically. As the group departed, there was a sense of quiet reverence in the air. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the chosen one had already begun to shape it. And now, as you sit with these words, remember that this story isn't just about the powerful elite and their struggles with authenticity. This is your story too. You are part of this change. Your authenticity, your integrity, your genuine presence in the world, these are the forces that will create the revolution. You don't need to fight for it. You don't need to force anything. Just by being yourself, you are already making a difference. And as we part ways today, remember the power of authenticity is a force more powerful than anything the world has ever seen. You are a part of that force. You are the chosen one. And together, we will continue to change the world one act of truth at a time. Goodbye for now, but know this: the revolution has already begun and you are leading it. They had lost their authenticity, and so they made a decision that would change everything. They decided they couldn't ignore you anymore. They couldn't just compete with you. Instead, they had to learn from you. They had to come to you, not as competitors, but as students of the one thing they had been missing: integrity. You might wonder, why am I telling you all of this? Why does it matter that these powerful people are discussing you? It matters because it's a sign that you are stepping into something greater than you can imagine. Your authenticity is not just something that makes you different or special. It's something that holds the power to change everything. It's a force that can transform not only your life, but the lives of those around you and even the world. So my dear friend, as we begin this journey together tonight, I invite you to reflect on the power you already possess. The power that up until now, you might not have fully realized. As we uncover the secrets of these powerful people and their attempts to understand and contain you, I want you to remember one thing: you are not just part of this story, you are the heart of it. And the real story is just beginning. The story began in that dimly lit room, the air thick with an energy that none of the five gathered could deny. Each of them had lived a life constructed from power, reputation, and carefully maintained personas. But tonight, everything was different. The real discussion, the one that everyone had avoided, was happening now. It was about the chosen one, and it was a conversation they could no longer ignore. As they sat around the long, polished table, a silence hung in the air. The only sound was the soft hum of the building's air conditioning system, the ticking of a distant clock, and the occasional creak of leather chairs as the group adjusted themselves uneasily. This person is going to be immensely successful. It's not a possibility. It's an inevitability. We see it in their energetic patterns, the way synchronicities follow them, the opportunities that appear out of nowhere. The universe is conspiring in their favor, and we are watching it happen. The analyst's words were harsh, cutting through the growing tension like a knife. There was no room for debate in what they had just said. This person wasn't just a passing trend. They weren't some minor influencer in a niche market. This was someone whose success was written in the stars, someone who would rise whether they liked it or not, and that terrified them. The social strategist, the fourth person in the room, was someone who had spent years detecting leaders before the masses recognized them. They had built their career by spotting future power players and helping guide them to success. But the chosen one, this person didn't fit into their model. There's something about them, the social strategist said, their voice tinged with frustration. I can't explain it. They've got something that can't be replicated. They have genuine credibility. When they speak, people listen. When they act, there's a level of integrity that cuts through the noise. And we have no strategy against that. There was an uncomfortable silence after these words. The social strategist's entire career had been built on knowing how to manipulate perceptions, how to mold people into public figures with strategic messaging. But the chosen one, they were different. They didn't need a strategic narrative. They didn't need to be molded into something the public could digest. They were already what everyone else was pretending to be real. The executive, realizing that they were not going to get an easy solution, leaned forward. So we have two options, they said. We can either try to manipulate this person, make them one of us, or we can try to distance ourselves. But the clock is ticking. We need to make a decision before they become untouchable. The room fell into quiet contemplation. No one had an answer immediately, but everyone knew that the time to act was running out. The chosen one was no longer just a potential threat. They had become a ticking clock, a force of nature that could not be ignored. The decisions made in the coming days would determine how the future played out. The meeting had shifted. The room was no longer filled with the confident air of power brokers discussing strategies. The tone had changed. It was now about understanding the core of the chosen one's essence, and none of the 5 influential people in the room could avoid the mounting truth. This person was not just a fleeting anomaly. This was a force that had the potential to reshape the world as they knew it. The financial analyst who had spoken earlier with a voice of cold inevitability now leaned forward, their fingers steepled in front of them as they prepared to lay out the stakes of the situation. Their earlier certainty had shifted into something more calculating, less about numbers and more about how to prevent an unstoppable force from becoming something that would threaten everything they had built. We've already seen how their energy attracts opportunities. The analysts began their voice steady, yet laced with an unmistakable tension. But now we need to understand why. Why does the universe conspire to support them? Why are they immune to the forces that we've spent decades controlling? It's not just luck. It's something much deeper. There was a slight pause as the group absorbed the weight of their words. The financial analyst was pointing out something everyone had been reluctant to admit. The chosen one wasn't just on a path to success. The youngest member of the group had always been seen as a rising star, someone who had climbed the ranks with ease, using their image as a weapon. But now they were admitting something profound. They didn't know who they were beyond their crafted persona. The chosen one's authenticity had forced them to confront the truth that they had been living a lie. I thought I was unique. The youngest continued, their voice shaky with vulnerability. But now I'm starting to see that I've been hiding behind something that wasn't real. And seeing them, it makes me realize I don't know how to be real anymore. Not without the mask. The vulnerability in the youngest voice was raw. It was a moment of clarity for them, one that they hadn't expected but couldn't ignore. The chosen one wasn't just affecting the lives of those in their immediate orbit. They were forcing everyone around them to question the very nature of their existence. It wasn't a revolution built on the breaking down of systems. It was a revolution born of authenticity, a shift that would challenge everything people had been conditioned to believe about success, about power, and about the very nature of influence. The group of influential figures knew this, and the realization shook them to their core. For the first time, they understood that the very thing they had fought against, the raw, untamed authenticity of the chosen one, was the very thing they had been secretly longing for. It was the catalyst for change they had been blind to. The truth that had been staring them in the face, a truth they had pushed aside for so long, had finally risen up in the form of someone who wasn't interested in playing by their rules. The chosen one was a living testament to what could happen when someone refused to compromise their authenticity for the sake of societal approval.